Wow, that's a pretty cool place right here. We just came from all the way up there. Okay, so keep going. What I want to talk about today is passing on monotonous work to unqualified people, like new people who you just hired, and you have some stupid task that you need to do over and over, but you feel like, I don't want to do it. Let me just grab this guy from a production floor and just have him sit there and click this button over and over. Is that a good idea? Bad idea? And what you should be careful of? Let's talk about that. So this is something I've done myself multiple times. You know, you get a job, and especially like on the older days when we didn't have as much automation, which was actually the topic of the previous video, we had to do things manually. Maybe you had to use Excel to create load files, Microsoft Access or something like that. And the thing that I would do is I would just pull like a guy off the floor, maybe look for the most technical guy who is in scanning right now and see if he wants to learn some of the tech stuff. That's kind of how people got promoted. But basically you get a person in and you say, okay, I have a task. We need to click on this button over and over. You know, you export, okay, export, okay, export, okay. When you're done with this, you do this folder and you do that folder. Well, there are some problems that come with handing complicated work like that to someone who is inexperienced. And the best way to explain why is through use of analogy. Now, you know, I'm a car guy. I love doing car analogies, but this time we're going to do something different, something actually I don't do. We're going to talk about welding, meaning like joining metals together with like other hot metal. Okay, so welding by itself, if you take like a cheap welder from the store, like regular MIG, and you start welding metal, it's actually an easy process. Anyone can do it. It's like a hot glue gun that just shoots metal out. But you still can't have an unqualified person doing it, even though the actual process is super easy. You just point and you go bzzz, and it just does it for you. So the first difficulty with welding is setup. You have to prepare the material and you have to set up a welder and you have to dial in wire speed and how much current you're going to put through it. And that takes an experienced welder to do. Anyone can just point the gun once it's set up and go bzzz and stitch things together. But only an experienced welder can do the setup. And again, just like the analogy in our situation with e-discovery, you need an experienced person to set up a process before handing it over to the inexperienced person. Now, the second thing is knowing when things go wrong. And again, super important in welding. Let's say you are doing your thing, but then something changed. Thickness of the metal changed. Maybe there is contamination. Something is not going well. Well, the experienced welder will be able to spot a problem because the sound is different, or the sparks are different, or something else is different, and they're able to make those adjustments to account for the problem. So same deal when you hand off something to an inexperienced person. They have to know how to spot a problem when they're, let's say, doing export, 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 but let's say there is an error came up or some kind of weird message, or maybe something doesn't look right. Well, it takes training, it takes experience to know that the steps you're doing, something went wrong, and I shouldn't just keep going next, next, next. You know, I have to stop and figure it out. I've seen situations where we've pulled a number of people from a production floor and just had them sit there and do some kind of labor-intensive task, only to observe later that they completely ignore problems, or they're not paying attention to what they're doing. They just simply keep just going and going through the motions and doing their thing. And well, that's kind of the inspiration for the video actually, is even if you get an inexperienced person and you think the task is simple, there are some things you have to do to make sure you have success with whatever it is you're doing. And as by now I've probably made it clear, those are the two important things to consider. Number one is the setup. Make sure that people are configured, everything's configured to what they're going to be doing, everything's set up, folders prepared, all the windows are open, and they understand the scope of the work. But the second thing is you need to train those people to look for problems. When something is off, something is not going well, make sure they're not left by themselves and they're just going to ignore the errors. They need to have you available to them again, so they could like, hey, something's not going here, can you quickly take a look? because the tendency maybe is to set up a person, tell them to click a button, and just go home. Here, you sit there all night and do it. But that's, again, that's the wrong approach. You need to be available to answer questions, and the person needs to feel comfortable that they are able to ask you questions, and they're not going to be penalized for it, and they're going to get an answer or guidance as to what's going on while they're doing their task. So should we never give less qualified person tasks to do? No, of course not. We live in the real world, and people also need to learn, right? So they need to be exposed to more complicated tasks in some way. So we are going to be doing that for sure. But I guess my whole point of this video is make sure that people are set up for success, make sure you're not ignoring them, and you are there to answer their questions and help them whenever they need something. All right, put your comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to follow on LinkedIn, subscribe on YouTube, and I will see you on another video from possibly just as awesome location as this one.